I'm Dr. Gail Gross. My guest has been admired by audiences for his performances on screen, stage, and television for over 40 years. Michael York has appeared in over 60 films and numerous television programs. He's known by audiences for his wide-ranging performances from The Three Musketeers to his roles in the Austin Powers films. His voice is also in constant demand. He has recorded more than 60 audiobooks, and his work recently earned him the Audiophiles Earphones Award for his recording of Thich Nhat Hanh's Creating True Peace. He has continued to feed his love for theater with numerous stage performances, and his book, A Shakespearean Actor Prepares, has generated enthusiastic reviews. He received an Emmy nomination for his television work in The Lot. He has also been recognized with the award, the Order of the British Empire, France's National Order of Arts and Letters, and in 2002, Michael received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Michael also gives his time and talent to young people, serving as the chairman of the California Youth Theater, an organization providing arts education to the community. Welcome to the program, Michael.
Thank you.
Your life has become just a legend. It's so amazing. Did you ever in your life expect to end up here? I know in your autobiography, Accidentally on Purpose, you write about these things. Tell us about that.
Well, I think, do you ever expect to, you don't see any blueprint of a life as a child. I think you have certain ambitions,
Yes.
and you follow them. But I don't think, the exciting thing is it's never ever kind of laid out. And particularly for an actor, it's a career that there's absolutely nothing is foreseen or foreordained or plotted. There's no blueprint. That's why, in fact, I called the book Accidentally on Purpose, because it was, on the one hand, it was, I hoped, an attention-grabbing title. But on the other hand, a really sincere, investigation. Is this whole disparate collection of different jobs, are they all united in some sort of scheme of things, or is it just sheer anarchy and happenstance?
Amazing.
I'm not sure I found the answer, but it was interesting to take a look.
How did it start? What was your childhood like? Did you always know you wanted to be an actor?
Well, apparently I was a bit of a show-off as a kid. I think the first word I learned was watch. But then it got sublimated into something else. You know, I went to schools that did school plays, which I enjoyed, but I also enjoyed, kicking a football around. But then it got serious, I think, when I was a teenager, and I was living near London, and a remarkable man called Michael Croft started something called the Youth Theatre, which has now become the Royal National Youth Theatre of Great Britain.
Right.
It's a very big deal. But then it was starting out, and the idea was to bring kids together in a big Shakespeare production. Not to turn out little stars, but to give them all the sort of passion, the educative values, the sense of team playing, all these positive things that you would have on the football field, but in the arena of the performing arts. And it really worked, and it sort of gave my life a focus. And then at Oxford University, which was a sort of great unofficial acting school,
Yes.
In fact, the Monty Pythons were starting out there.
How incredible.
Michael Palin and Terry Jones were contemporaries. Then I sort of saw that, you were doing everything. You were doing classical plays, you were doing, review up at the Edinburgh Festival. But I felt I'd been taught by a lot of academics who'd had to make the choice. Do you leap into the unknown, into a career in the arts, or do you pull back and maybe sublimate that through teaching? But so I thought, well, I don't want to, I'd rather just find out and see if it works. If it doesn't, do something else. But fortunately, one thing has been leading to another.
What courage, because really, for most actors, you don't really know if you're going to have a pay scale, if you're going to be even able to start acting on a professional level. I mean, it's an amazing leap.
Absolutely no guarantee. And every actor I know, even the most sort of legendary, the dames and the knights and the sirs, I know they all feel that at the end of one job it's going to be their last,
Yes.
and they're never going to work again. It's an odd feeling, and maybe it keeps you on your toes.
And the other piece of that is the identity issues. I mean, you're not always given a job, you have a lot of rejection. How do you sustain that? How are you able to accept, I'm losing the role, it's not about me, it's not my identity?
I was given a piece of good advice, in fact, by one of the first directors I worked with in the cinema, which was Franco Zeffirelli.
Ah.
And he said something which I've actually passed on to other people. He said, you've got to believe in yourself, that you will completely and totally succeed in what you're doing. And if you have that inner core of self-belief, of course it may be self-delusion, but because a lot of people...
Doesn't matter, really.
A lot of people are not going to believe in you, and there would be a lot of enormous amount of rejection.
Yes.
You know, it somehow, it fires up the engine and keeps you going.
And then you met your wonderful wife, Pat. How did that happen?
Well,
I know there's a story there.
Well, there was. I'd just become a movie actor, and 2 films had come out back-to-back in New York. It was the Taming of the Shrew, the Zeffirelli film, the
with
Shakespeare.
Elizabeth Taylor.
And yes, it was...
And Richard Burton.
But I'd also done a film called Accident for Joe Losey, a very modern piece, you know, script by Harold Pinter and Dirk Bogart, a complete contrast.
Quite different.
And they come out in the same week, so I was a bit of the flavor of the month. And Pat was then she was working for Condé Nast. She'd been the travel editor there. She'd now developed a passion for photography and had been sent to photograph people. In fact, she had this assignment in England to photograph, I think, Albert Finney and a lot of other people, and including this Michael York, who she didn't know, and I didn't know who she... I was told that this Pat McCallum was coming, and I thought it was an Irishman.
Yes.
So when this blonde arrives on the doorstep...
Gorgeous blonde, I might add.
So we sort of clicked. I mean, it was, you know, it's odd. It's like being interviewed with you. Here you are, you sit in front of a stranger, but not in your case, and you completely open up your heart.
Right.
But we had a wonderful day in London, and that was it. It's sort of... in fact, I have a record. I brought this in to give you because it's Pat's latest catalogue from a show in Cologne. And and
we have to say that this is something that's become an amazing thing for Pat, a career that has re-blossomed into something huge.
It's huge,
in photography.
And it's thrilling for me to see her being recognized in this way. And this Murzinska Gallery in Cologne just last month put on this show. And I see they included a picture taken that first day.
Oh, my.
So we have a record of that encounter. And me looking rather sort of positive at the photographer.
Really wonderful. How handsome.
Well.
And you've really become more and more handsome.
Oh, yeah.
But that story is really over 38 years old, because this marriage has sustained and endured and blossomed and grown.
I think it does. I mean,
Really?
I know you've been married a long time, Gail, and it's so interesting how I don't think a marriage does have a set course.
Yes.
It takes detours and things happen, and again, it's not something you predict. You sort of go with these cosmic flows, and that's what makes it so interesting.
But Michael, in Hollywood, to have not just a sustained marriage, not just an enduring marriage, but this fantastic relationship. I mean, that you're happy for Pat and you don't compete with each other and you're best friends with each other, because I know you both so well and I know how you take care of one another and help each other. What do you think? How did that happen in Hollywood? How did you sustain that level of intimacy?
I wish I had the answer. If I did, I'd write one of those books.
That may be next.
No, I think we're very lucky. We're very suited. We're very compatible, and yet we're different.
Yes.
So it's a sort of opposites attract. We both have a sort of same sort of rhythm. We like the same things, but not exclusively. So, and I'm with her being a freelance photographer, me being a freelance actor. It's very it's not too difficult to mesh careers. So,
it's wonderful.
for example, last month when this show opened in Cologne, I could go with her to the opening and then go on to Sofia in Bulgaria, where I was filming. And then she came along with me, and it was, and what was great that we neither of us had been to Bulgaria before, but we could, you know, share the experience, which I think always enriches it if you can do that. And
take such pleasure in each other's lives. I mean, I remember a story, help me with this, where you were on a set, was it in the East, and Pat got sick, and you had to take care of her. On this.
Oh, well, that was a very powerful experience.
Yes.
I was in India doing a very early merchant and ivory film called The Guru, in an era when they still made movies in India. And she was with me. We just sort of... I'd actually proposed to her on a beach in Bombay, so we'd already connected.
How wonderful.
And then she was terribly sick, and then she was dying. And she had to have this amazing operation and her life was saved in India. An operation which is pretty difficult in, you know, the most...
best of circumstances.
Yes. And it was caused by taking a drug. You know, someone said, if you're going to India, you better take this, you know, to prevent getting sick. Right. And she was allergic to it. So it actually changed and embellished her life. So suddenly she wanted to become well naturally. So she started exploring all these other therapies, which in the 60s weren't as prominent as they now are, like homeopathy and naturopathy, all these things.
Natural healing.
And became incredibly well and strong. And so it in a way, it was a terrible thing, but
yes,
like so many things, if you can live through them, it becomes, you know,
life-altering.
Yes, and life-improving. Too. Yeah.
So it's sort of like going through the descent and coming out on the other side.
Yes, yes.
It's an amazing story, because I know that Pat does now, and that you both follow a lot of preventative kinds of measures. I
think that's the key word. You keep the old system in optimum shape, you know, and well, like the Chinese system, I think it's where you pay your doctor while you're well,
right?
And stop paying
if you're not. And to move into your career a bit, you were in the Oscar-winning movie Cabaret, my all-time favorite, and the fabulously nutty Austin Powers. You've gone from drama to broad comedy. How tough is that to do?
I love it. I think the one thing I'd hate would be to be stuck in a box or with a big label around your necks, you know, with a certain type.
Yes.
And I think this is my own instincts, you know. What I love is the change in this job, that you're doing one thing one week and then you're doing something completely different. And maybe it's part of the training that we get in Britain. At least I did. In the 60s, there was still a strong repertory system, where you went off and learnt your craft the Aristotelian way by doing it. So you're playing Shakespeare one week and a modern farce the next. And it was very... gave you tremendous resources, and I've always loved that, and I rather regretted that didn't happen here. In fact, I think it's very tough for young actors here, you know, because in the first place there's this huge concentration on celebrity.
Yes.
Not on talent or hard work, but celebrity as an end in itself.
Yes.
And I think that can be very damaging. So, you know, you see a lot of young actors who instantly become huge successes, but they have no resources to fall back on.
Yes.
They need those roots that are going to kind of hold them fast when the chill winds start to blow, as they do in every career.
Yes.
I mean, you're in and out of fashion, you're hot and then you're not. It's just one of these inevitable things. Nobody rides the crest of the wave the whole
time.
Trip. No.
Recently, you were even on the Larry David program, which is so ad-libbed, this Curb Your Enthusiasm. How enthusiastic were you for a show with no script?
Well, I loved the show. I just loved its irreverence, and also it was so tuned in to the kind of human condition, to the sort of foibles, the things that we daren't admit. And
Yes.
Larry was coming on as our spokesman. He could say these things that we did.
And he does.
It's great fun because
Yes.
it's like it's like this interview. I mean, it's
Yes.
unscripted. So you sit down and
Have a conversation.
and invent things. And I mean, there's a sort of plan. You're told that you need to get from A to B, but you're not. You're given a free rein dialogue-wise.
So there's sort of like an outline in a sense.
yes.
What is it like, Michael? I can't imagine how you would just sort of. Do you just, in a certain way, bounce off of each other, one actor to another, in a very honest?
Well, I think it brings out, a lot of people love improvising.
Yes.
And it's often used as an exercise and, indeed used in practice because, actors getting into the act and using their imagination and living the role. So it's an extension of that.
Yes.
But it's, it was immensely enjoyable.
That's wonderful.
You're sort of, the lunatics are allowed to take over the madhouse.
And you're on your own.
Yes.
Well, there's a very serious side to you. On the other hand, you lecture on Shakespeare, you teach, and you lecture on poetry. What do you tell your audiences? What is that hat all about, the more serious intellectual?
Well, I love that. I think it's really, Gail, it's in the department of giving back. One's been very
Yes.
fortunate. And I think when you get to my age, you start, contemplating and thinking where you've been, and also the sheer pleasure of doing something that, something new. And the whole teaching thing of, handing on stuff and information. And also, actually, the lectures I give are, they have a intellectual content, but I like to have performance pieces, so they're a mixture of both, a sort of hybrid.
Yes.
So it keeps the the performing mechanism turning over. I enjoy it very, very, very much.
In a sort of way, you've written a textbook on how to be such an actor. People call it a classic, really. Tell us about that.
Well, the Shakespeare book it came out of a conviction that maybe I wrote it with a very good friend of mine, and we had this passionate feeling that the plays were being hijacked by academics, and yet we wanted to put the focus back on the fact that they were written for actors.
Yes.
Possibly by an actor. We don't know who Shakespeare was, but there were certainly, for actors. And that within the plays themselves were the keys as to how Shakespeare wanted them performed. Not in the obvious place like in Hamlet, where you have, Hamlet comes on with the famous...
To be or not to be.
No, the advice to the players.
Oh, yes,
a bit
exactly.
cheeky, this prince coming on and telling these,
how to
these
listen.
professional actors how to
do it.
Yeah. But it's really there you hear Shakespeare
Yes.
pleading for a new naturalistic kind of acting to match the new kind of drama that he was inventing.
Yes.
But all through the plays, there are the keys. So that was the starting off point, and 400 pages later.
Amazing. It's really been called a classic, Michael. It's an amazing thing.
It's always nice when a book, stays on, and what is even nicer to get letters from people for whom it's meant something.
And your autobiography, people have compared you in a sense to David Niven with this broad brilliance, and it really was really received a lot of acclaim.
Well,
what made you sit down and write an autobiography?
I know, indeed. And I said, ridiculous. This was 10 years ago when I was, I was just about hit 50. And
a mere child.
Exactly. I just, And I did say that. I
Yes.
protested. I said, but listen, hopefully I'm only, if not halfway through, but, you know, there's still a bit more to go, and this is presumptuous. And then I thought, well, why not? Why not take a break, take a pause, see where one has been, hopefully to make what lies ahead a little more meaningful.
Fascinating.
So, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was difficult, but it was tremendously rewarding.
And wonderfully honest. And that's the amazing thing, isn't it? The difficulty, perhaps, in writing is that you really strip down to the most honest part of you. And that's what makes it so well received.
Well, I thought it would be 5 pages long when I started.
Yes.
But then it's interesting once you start writing how you start peeling the onion and realize there are more and more
Exactly.
layers. And the memory is sort of there, but it needs to be, you know, coaxed out.
Isn't that amazing,
Yeah.
Michael? You think it's gone,
Yes.
but you start writing, and there it is.
What it also did was, in order to write and also do one's day job as an actor, I used to start getting up at 4:30 and you know, write, and that sort of habit has stayed. So I've, you know, found more things to write.
You've become quite a writer, actually, and it must be a great passion.
Well, I enjoy it very much. Yes. Yes.
And now you're waking up 5 in the morning
Yes,
to
I
write.
know.
What are you working on now?
Well, last year I did a very interesting thing. It was the biggest independent movie to be made in Russia, in English, but financed by the Russians. And so I was there quite a time, and as a sort of fly on the wall, I started taking notes. Then I worked up these notes. Then it became a book about the movie, about movies, about Russia in this extraordinary time of transition. So, but the final chapter awaits to be written next month when I go to Moscow for the opening of the film in the best theater.
How exciting!
So that's it. So it's all written right up to that
Isn't
you know,
that
last moment.
wonderful? So it's really, really a piece in progress, and the end won't be realized until you return.
Until I'm actually
there. So you're an actor who's crossed all these genres, and you've been in plays and movies, you've written books, you've lectured. So going back to an earlier question, you are a risk taker.
I'm a bit of a maverick, yes. Yes. I mean, I like to be responsible. You know, it's your own career.
Yes.
It's nobody else's.
No one looks after it the way you do yourself.
No, I think you have to be. You can't blame anyone. You can acknowledge other people. You can thank them. But it's basically your
baby.
Body of work. Yes.
Yes.
And I've often things I've accepted have all been turned down by agents or whatever. But I've always seen something interesting in them, and also because there is this factor, Gail, that. You know, it was said in this town, I think, with William Goldman, that nobody knows anything.
I love that.
Which levels...
That's very Buddhist.
Yes, but it's marvelous. It's true,
Who can know
too.
the truth?
It levels the playing field.
Amazing.
You know, nobody knows the outcome of these ventures. You know,
Yes.
the guys in the Armani suits in the glass towers could
The
be...
accountants.
Yeah, they could be tossing coins in the air.
It takes so much courage to really try different genres, do different things.
I think it's maybe because one's become used to that. That's the way it's been.
Yes.
And that's the way I like it. I actually like the fact that, you know, there's a sort of sense of unknowing surrounding everything, that, you know, you don't quite know what's going to happen next. The great thing about this job is that there's no cutoff point, or there shouldn't be.
Exactly.
Because as long as you can, you know, you have your wits and your health, and you can keep contributing, you know, you can keep on going.
Yes.
You know, people talk, I'm sad to say, about my age, about this retirement, of giving it up and going and doing what you really want to do. But I find I'm doing what I really want to do. So it's, and, you know, Sir John Gielgud was a great friend of mine, and he's sort of become my role model, because I remember he was 96, and I called him on his birthday and asked him, you know, John, how have you spent your day? And he said, well, I've been filming all day. Samuel Beckett.
I love that.
And I thought, well, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, you know, Freud said work and love made a whole life.
Yes.
And that people tend to retire and then they don't have a next goal. What are they retiring to?
Yes.
And if they don't prepare, they often die.
Well, also, I think if we are changing, if life expectancy is now much longer,
Yes.
then maybe we have to revise our opinion of what constitutes, old age.
You're giving me a chance to say my favorite piece of information, which is, in the East, they consider 60 midlife rather than 40.
Oh, really?
And that the body should go to 120 at least. And there was that woman in France who lived to be almost 123. I tell everyone in my family that.
Yes. Great. So, well, you've made my day. I'm just barely hitting my stride.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
This has
Gail.
been a wonderful conversation.
Well, I've enjoyed it,
a
too.
wonderful experience. And I know that you and Pat have so much more to do together and her career. And I'll show this book. I'll let you show it.
Well, this is the catalog, so it was actually, she brought it. It was a present for you and Janelle.
Oh, great. Pat York. Uncovered, and a great photographer, and great works, and you're now accompanying her on occasion.
I'm her roadie.
Her roadie. Well, you're our favorite. Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael York, it's been a pleasure visiting with you today. Your work is outstanding, and we look forward to seeing more from you on the stage, screen, and in print. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Gail Gross, and thank you for watching.